How's everybody doing today? Yeah, we are so happy to be out here with you guys today. Traveled 20 hours out from Austin, Texas, all the way out to the beautiful country of Saudi Arabia. This is our first time here, and we've absolutely loved being out here. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, my name is James Dumlin, and alongside my brother and co-founder Jack Dumlin and other co-founder Joshua Smith, we created the School of Hard Knocks. Now, what is the School of Hard Knocks? So over the last 3 years, my co-founders and I have successfully built and created one of the largest business media channels in the entire world, where we grew our channel to over 10 million followers across Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, doing over 4 billion views across social media in just 3.5 years. Now, for those of you who haven't seen our content before, what we do is we travel all around the world, interviewing the most successful founders, entrepreneurs, business owners, executives from the biggest companies in the entire world. If you have seen our content before, maybe you've seen us with Shaquille O'Neal, Mark Cuban, Gary Vee, Kendra Scott, Patrick Bet-David, Ryan Serhant, Grant Cardone, billionaire Marcus Lemonis, Damon John, billionaire Mohammed Ben Gadi, who's not too far from here, another billionaire, Rizwal Sajan, owner of the Houston, Texas billionaire Cal McNair, and the CEO of Nike, 7-Eleven, and Frito-Lay. See, we interviewed and built great relationships with all of these people over just the last 3 years. And that's thanks to the power of social media, which is what we're here to talk about today. Now, why does social media matter? Social media connects 4.9 billion people worldwide across all of these different platforms. And creators have been able to leverage the platforms that they've built to solve real problems, not just in their community, not just in their state or country, but around the entire world.
How's everyone doing? So obviously, if we're talking about social media, a worldwide technology that connects 4.9 billion people, then clearly people are spending time watching content made by creators. And those creators have made massive impact with the audiences that they've built on these platforms. And so I want to take a quick look and show you some creators that have made massive impact and how they've been able to do that through social media. So a lot of you might be familiar with the gentleman on the right there, Cristiano Ronaldo, here in Saudi Arabia. He's the most followed influencer on Instagram today, but I want to take a second to talk about the man he just collaborated with, Jimmy Donaldson, also known as Mr. Beast. A lot of you all might know Mr. Beast for creating these extravagant YouTube videos, breaking world records, doing lavish things like riding in Lamborghinis, taking private jets, going on massive yachts. But Mr. Beast has also been able to create massive impact in his content for people all around the world. Some of the fantastic things that Mr. Beast has been able to do is feed millions of people worldwide, delivering meals all over the world. He's planted thousands and millions of trees around the world in areas and environments that need it. And he's also been able to help cure people that are blind and deaf. And so garnering over 400 billion people in his audience, the way that Mr. Beast has been able to do this is most people come to his content for that entertaining stuff, the Lamborghinis, the yachts, the mansions. I'm pretty sure he smashed a Lamborghini with a hydraulic press in one of his videos. But because so many people tune into that stuff, he's able to mix in a video every now and then that creates the global impact. For example, one video, he cured 1,000 people that were blind, helping them be able to see with new technology. Another creator that I want to talk about is Keith Lee. Now, if you're not familiar with Keith Lee, he's an American food critic that he first started going to different businesses in his local area, and he would try their food and share his experience about how the food tastes and the way that they treated him in the restaurant on social. Over time, Keith garnered a following of tens of millions, And the way that he's been able to create impact is through authenticity, and transparency about his experiences. So people feel like they're building a real connection with Keith. And through things like the COVID-19 pandemic, Keith was able to help struggling businesses in his community because he would just take a business that maybe got a few customers in the last month, and he would make one post about their video, and if he enjoyed his experience, then that business had hundreds of people lined outside the door. I want to share a little bit about what we've been able to do with our brand, the School of Hard Knocks. So we've garnered a following of over 10 million people worldwide, and two missions when we first started our channel, the School of Hard Knocks, I believe we've been able to help the 10 million people that follow us achieve. The first is, growing up in the American traditional school system, things like financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and success habits aren't necessarily touched on. And so through our content, going and finding millionaires and billionaires, we're able to help share those things that might not be taught at an early age in places like America. But now, because they're learning it directly from millionaires and billionaires, they can get exposed to that information to help them create generational wealth and build the business of their dreams. The second thing, and the reason why we started the channel, is the three of us were really blessed growing up with some great mentors, but not all of our peers had that. There's so many people around the world that don't have access to mentorship. They don't have someone in their hometown, maybe it's a small town, or maybe even a country where there's not as many booming opportunities going on. And so for what we've been able to do is we've been able to connect with the millionaires and billionaires, and people get that touch point through the screen in our interviews, feel like they're getting mentored from people that created massive companies. One thing that we're really proud of is, yes, we have an audience of 10 million people, but we've been able to build a community even offside of social media called the School of Mentors, where we have about 2,000 entrepreneurs that get to learn directly and ask questions to the millionaires and billionaires we interview every single week on live calls. That's direct mentorship. And here's some more granular ways that our community has gotten impact through us building a massive brand on social. We get direct messages on our Instagram page every week, hundreds of messages from people around the world that did something similar to the millionaires, is where they took the risk and they went out and started their own company and left maybe their safe job. That's unheard of for a lot of people, but because they heard the secrets from the people that we interview, they were able to take that leap. The second thing I want to touch on is there was a member in that private community that I talked about that even on our first call, we invited the former CEO of 7-Eleven, James Keys, to come and speak with our community, where he touched on how education creates freedom and opportunity. And so that young man, he's from South Africa, he was garnered to be able to, was pretty much set up to have a blue-collar job for the rest of his life. But then the very next day after listening to our call, he went and applied to economic school and shot for a career that was going to be able to pay him more and set him up for generational wealth. And so after we've seen some creators that have created massive impact, we want to be able to turn it over to you all.
So now it's your turn. Today, we're going to be giving you guys the playbook that we used to not only build our brand to over 10 million followers, but also the same playbook that we use to build a business that generates multiple seven figures a year. But just how big of an opportunity is the creator economy? The creator economy is a $190 billion industry in just 2024 alone. And every single year, it's continuing to grow. So how about we look at some of the numbers here? In 2019, creators with 100,000 followers made on average between $20,000 to $40,000 a year. And now, in 2024, that same creator with 100,000 followers on average makes $50,000 to $100,000. But where is that growth happening? Why is that change happening? And let me ask you a question. The last time you guys purchased something, why did you buy it? Was it because you needed it? Was it because a friend recommended it to you? Did a family member recommend it to you? Or was it because a creator that you watch online influenced you to buy that product? And so now, every single year, there has been more growth and more opportunity for creators across the world to not only grow their brand, but grow their monetization online. And in 2034, it's projected that creators with 100,000 followers can make between $100,000 to $200,000 a year. And so now, I want you guys to think about this. Let's just look at some of the numbers here. Why is this growth happening? And in 2023, creators or brands that spent $1 on influencer marketing received a 5x return on advertising spend. That's insane, a 5x return. And next, in 2025, literally next year, it's projected that 40% of households across the globe will no longer be using television, cable television, the traditional media that you sit down on your couch while you're watching a meal and you put on the news. The reason being is because the new media is right here on your phone. People are consuming content differently now. People, in order to stay up to date with current events and global affairs, they're going to platforms like Twitter and Instagram to stay up to date with what's happening. And if there's one thing that I've learned from interviewing and meeting with over 1,000 millionaires and billionaires, is that you could have the best product, the best service, or even the best mission in the world, but if no one knows about it, you will never be able to have the impact that you want to have. And so, the number one skill that you could learn today is the skill of attention.
But how do we capture and garner that attention to be able to reach and impact tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people all over the world? And we created a 5-step viral video blueprint that you guys can take beyond this presentation today, that you can take into your own business or when you want to embark out on that endeavor to build that personal brand of yours. So let's get right into it. Number one, we have to understand the psychology of virality. Just as psychology is important in sales, in business, it is also extremely important in all aspects of content creation. And every piece of content that you decide to create, we need to try and elicit one of these 3 emotions. Creating awe, having your viewer feel some form of shock from the video that you're making. Curiosity, where you're leaving your viewer and the audience wondering what's going to happen next. Or how about outrage? See, controversy is not always great, but in content creation, when it comes to virality, it's not a bad idea to stand behind a piece of content. And so, every viral post checks one of these 3 boxes. Again, surprise or shock, relatability. 59% of Gen Z and Gen X users prefer relatable content rather than perfection. And number 3, adding practical value to the viewers' lives. And number 2, arguably the most important slide up here today when it comes to going viral is obsessing over short-form content structure. See, after doing 4 billion views, we've been able to garner a formula that we've taken into every single video that we create. Starting off with the most important aspect of any video that you decide to create, which is the hook. The first 3 seconds of the video that you make. The hook of the video is where 70% of people lose their audience. Why? Because as Josh pulled out the phone, people's attention spans due to technology has increasingly shrunk over the years. You're competing against hundreds of videos for people's attention, where if you don't get their attention and get them hooked in the first few seconds of a video, you are going to lose them and that video is not going to perform. But once we master the hook, the next thing is going to be adding that value. After we add value, it's retention. We're going to be talking about this a little bit later in here. But retention, keeping people engaged from start to finish. And lastly, we need to end our videos with some form of call to action to direct the traffic that we're getting from these videos. And so number 3 of the 5, we need to exploit platform-specific algorithm triggers. If there's any one metric on social media that we need to be focusing on when we're creating these videos, it isn't focusing on how many likes am I getting, how many comments, how many shares, how many saves am I obtaining through my content. The most important metric of all of social media across any platform, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, is watch time. Keeping people watching your videos from start to finish. And why is that? Simply because these platforms are all competing against one another for your attention. And the platforms reward those creators who are able to keep viewers watching from start to finish of their content. So we need to be focusing on watch time. Number 4, we need to triple down on high performance niches. One of the best pieces of advice that I've ever received is that the riches are in the niches. Go deep for 90 days, creating content about one thing, and that will enable the apps, the platforms, to recognize you as an authority over that topic of content. And lastly, number 5, post with consistency and frequency. I cannot stress this enough. If you're posting every single day, you're going to win. And I want to leave a quote with you guys to wrap up this segment of our presentation, is that going viral on social media is like winning the lottery. But creating consistent content is like investing in your future. Thank you. So how will you create impact? Whether you're an influencer, whether you've started creating content, whether you're about to embark on that journey of becoming a content creator, whether it's making content for your small business or at a big company for a renowned brand, your voice matters. And your story is your power. And so before we leave here today, I know we touched a lot about content creation, but as I mentioned throughout, is that the three of us have interviewed thousands of the most successful people around the entire world. And over that period of time, we want to pass on 6 lessons that we've learned from interviewing over 1,000 millionaires and billionaires. Starting with number 1, which is to take massive action. The most successful people, the most hyper-successful people in any industry, they do not wait. I was one time given a piece of advice from a millionaire from Florida, and he asked me, he said, "Do you know where the most valuable piece of real estate is?" And I said, "Where?" And he said, "It's in graveyards, because there's billion-dollar ideas sitting in the ground of people that never took action. You can't procrastinate anymore, because procrastination is the assassination of all destinations."
And number 2, attach yourself to people and build relationships. There's a saying here that we love at the School of Hard Knocks, that people will take you places that money can't. And the reality is, guys, is it doesn't matter how much money you have at the end of the day for some things, because there's opportunities out there that money simply can't buy. But oftentimes, you're not a financial block away. You're just one connection, one friend away from changing your life or changing your career. And number 3, focus versus diversification. There's a common saying that the average millionaire has 7 streams of income. But don't let that phrase fool you, because the reality is, after interviewing thousands of millionaires, we've realized that 99% of the millionaires that we've interviewed have built their wealth through one income, through one vehicle, and later, once they had an excess of capital, they then diversified. So I'll leave you with this. Concentration builds wealth, and diversification keeps it.
And number 4, we need to understand and master leverage. And leverage in all aspects of business, with capital, with money, with people, understanding that you need to delegate in business. You need to bring other people in. You need to leverage other people. You need to leverage capital. You need to leverage time, especially if you're younger. Time is on your side. And also, leverage in a negotiation. The person who is the most willing to walk away from a deal will always have the most leverage.
Number 5 is you need to learn how to sell. Most of the millionaires and billionaires that we interview, 75% of billionaires started off in some form of direct sales. And so they had this experience being able to go back and forth with the customer on the day-to-day and be able to convince them to buy their product. But what about at a higher level? See, what makes the billionaires so great at selling is they're able to master communicating their product and service and the vision behind their company to the masses. My favorite example of this is Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. When he launched the iPhone in 2009, he stood up on a stage just like this, and he presented it to the world, going over each individual feature of his product. And debatably, the most important lesson here out of the 6 lessons that we're giving you from the millionaires and billionaires we interviewed, is that building a company is difficult. Most of the entrepreneurs, the company that they build, it was not easy on the day-to-day. They had to go through roadblocks. And so the only reason they were able to garner through that and get through that day-to-day toughness when things weren't going well is they had a purpose higher than themselves, whether it was their family, whether it was religion, whether it was some mission to impact the world on a global stage. They were able to keep going even when things weren't going well. And so we want to be able to thank you all for joining us here today here in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We've loved our time and experience here. Thank you so much. And so we wanted to just post a quick link to our community, the School of Mentors, where we're inviting millionaires and billionaires on every single week for people to ask live mentorship questions. And we welcome you all to join the community. But we've been so thankful to be here, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for having us out.
Thank you, guys.
من كواليس النقد إلى السجادة الحمراء، عرض إثرائي حول عالم الفن السابع بين المتابع والمختص. يقدم العرض الإثرائي راكان الشايع. From the critic's lens to the red carpet, an enriching talk about the world's cinema, bridging perspectives between viewers and experts, presented by راكان الشايع.